That was a hell of a game, wasn't it? Super exciting. I think we were all wondering how the Canucks were going to do, rising up from the challenge from Ottawa, probably the worst team in the division. Definitely the worst team in the division, maybe the worst team in the league. And Winnipeg, a lot stronger team. And we saw that even without Line, and while they're waiting for Dubois to join, they looked deep and ferocious. I mean, I think their fourth line is a little bit thinner because they're waiting for these new people to join the lineup. But, I mean, their top lines are bloody lethal, and they put them out there a lot, and they're fast. And, I mean, the moves Kyle Connor was making, it kind of reminds me of Patrick Kane, a less flashy Patrick Kane, where he is not doing as many sort of flashy moves, but he has a way of just, he spreads his legs out, and we've all heard that term water bug a million times. And I think of that more as like somebody really light dancing across the ice. But the way that Kyle Connor just sort of opens his legs up and is able to just quickly shift left and right and create these huge chances for himself. And all the Winnipeg, like Nikolai Ehlers, you just heard his name all night long. He's creating so many great scoring chances out of some pretty harmless looking plays and really had the Canucks defenders back on their feet. And when you got some slower Canuck defenders like Myers and an aging Edler and Ben, you could see that these guys were on their guard. And I think probably because Myers knows his team pretty well, he looked probably the more up for it I've seen. I mean, he was taking the puck and circling around at one point, and a lot of movement. But every time he starts moving a lot, I get a little bit worried. Anyways, Besser opens the scoring on what started off as sort of a seemingly harmless looking play, and he ends up getting a little breakaway, and he finishes. He had that goal, and he had the empty netter at the end. Overall, I'm still not a huge Besser fan. He looked pretty good here. He killed a few plays. There was one play definitely in the offensive zone where it looked like they had something going, and he passed it to nobody at the blue line, and it led out. I don't know if that was on a power play, even strength, but I just don't think he's a super strong playmaker. But he can shoot, and he's scoring, and he's got 7 goals now. But I think when you're talking about early season starts and early season stats not really representing what the rest of the season is going to be, when you play those 3 games against Ottawa, I mean, Besser has the Ottawa goalie's number, so we'll see how his numbers even out. I hope he has a great season. I just think that my long-standing point with him is that for $7 million, I think you need somebody that brings a bit more. He's a bit more one-dimensional. I'd like him for 6 or something. But anyways, he had a good game, and I think he was definitely more effective than Pettersson. Pettersson seems like he's still struggling. He's still trying to do too much. There was a play where he broke his stick. I think it was on a power play. And instead of just going and getting another stick, the puck was coming out, ringing around the boards towards him. There was a defenseman with him, or somebody else at the point. I'm assuming it was the point man defenseman. And Pettersson tries to get involved and use his feet to keep it in. And he bobbles it, and the puck goes past, and it almost ends up being a breakaway. It's a really dangerous chance. And the Canucks had, in that first period, they had a lot of really dangerous giveaways. And Winnipeg pounces on that. Winnipeg is definitely that I mean, if what's his name? Because he's not playing on the team anymore. Brogan Rafferty. If Brogan Rafferty learned really quickly, and Levy, that hesitation will result in goals when Montreal pounces on it, Winnipeg was showing the Canucks' best defenseman that any miscommunications, any hesitation in the neutral zone, close to the Canucks zone, they were turning him into some dangerous chances. And if Demko wasn't top level playing, I think the Jets would have ran away with this in the first, but he kept them in big time, and it gave them, the Canucks, that confidence that Markstrom did so often back last season to rally and have a gigantic second period, really outshooting Winnipeg and putting the game away. We saw Appleton strike back in just a few minutes after that and even the game up, and Niels Höglander, man, did he have a hell of a game. There was a sequence in the end of the game where there was just under 6 minutes to go, and the Jets were pushing really hard. They were trying to even it up, and or trying to get back into it. I think it was 3-1 at that point. And Höglander, again, these things that just seem kind of harmless. Winnipeg was playing well in the Canucks zone. Höglander steals it, wheels around, starts breaking it out. It's just him all alone, and he beats a Winnipeg guy in the neutral zone. He's up against 2 guys in the jet zone, pushes it past him, gets his own dump in, rings around the back. Just when I think he's going to lose it again, he has a way of playing along the boards where it's not just that he's grinding it out and using a lot of energy and physicality. He's really smart with what he does on the boards. He watches who's coming at him, what he's going to do after, and he knows the physics of it, of like when to poke the puck here and there. Because in hockey, you see it. It's all about this motion, people moving around. Who's going to be able to get to those pucks? And you really have to have, he's just got amazing hockey sense, but he knows where everybody's moving and how to get it. And with Höglander just keeping that puck in the Winnipeg zone, they just totally wore out Winnipeg's top line. And I felt like when that top line of Winnipeg left the ice with 5 minutes to go, Winnipeg knew it's over. There's no chance. They can pull their goalie later, but Besser was going to seal it and turn it into a 4-1 game. But Höglander was just absolutely monstrous in that shift and several other times. I think he was by far the most effective Canuck on the ice tonight. There was a real incredible atmosphere there. I think the Winnipeg production team had the right mix of crowd sound, where it was just sort of like a white noise kind of roar, and then they increased it in the late parts of the game when Winnipeg was supposed to be sort of gearing up to finish off the game. I think they did that really well. It sounded really good, and there was a real great intensity. I'm really loving this season and how they're doing it, where it feels like every game is meaningful, and it feels like when you're starting off against Winnipeg and you're setting the tone for what it's going to be like to play them, like another 9 more times this year, you want to come out strong and you want to assert yourself. And I think both teams played like it was playoff hockey, and it was really impressive and exciting to watch. I think Gaudette's in a tough position. I think what we've seen with Travis Green is that he has his Pettersson line, his Pettersson and Miller line, and whoever's on that line. He's got his Horvat line. The Horvat line has been definitely the better in terms of like controlling the play and getting those head-to-head matchups and exceeding and just constantly causing havoc and creating chances with Höglander. Horvat and Höglander, definitely the top duo for the Canucks. And then he tends to have a third line of Mott and Beagle and a third person. Sometimes that's Roussel. And those guys tend to play quite a lot because I think he likes that their Mott brings a lot of speed. Beagle's not really that slow, and they're defensively responsible. They can win faceoffs. And Mott is ending up scoring quite a lot of goals now. I think he's got 5 on the year because he's facing the sort of other competition that is not really expecting him to do much, and he's really pouncing on that. But then we're seeing Green usually having a fourth line in terms of minutes played, where Gaudette's centering, or maybe Virtanen's on the line. And it's a line he doesn't really trust. So I think kind of the issue is that the Canucks, the makeup of their forwards, it's tough to sustain a lot of pressure because Mott's not really on an offensive enough line to cause consistent pressure, even though he's had the goals and he has the hands and he's got the speed. I think Pearson he's sort of a tweener, third line, second line guy. I think on a really, really good team, he's third line. I don't think he's in the top 6. I think the thing with Pearson is that he can do a lot of things. He's kind of like a poor man's JT Miller, where he's not super impressive with really anything. I mean, Pearson's not hugely physical, but he's not a weakling. You know, he's not going to be the captain, but he seems like he has a good attitude on the ice in terms of competitiveness. He can shoot when he's given the chance, but he's not like a deadly sniper. I don't think he's a great playmaker, but he can make a pass. He's not, he's not super fast, but he's not super slow. He's just the most middle of the road guy you can have. And I think ideally for the amount of money he's making, I think he's like a $3 or $4 million guy. That's what you want out of that money. But I think on a team that's going to win a championship, he's doing what he's doing now. He's either going to be an effective guy in your third line, or he's going to be sort of a floater that can go up and down. And while the Canucks are lacking that extra piece in the top 6, he's there. He's filling in, maybe where Toffoli would play, or they seem to have pretty decent chemistry with Horvat. But I think I would really like to see if they could get a third line center that has a bit of talent that they trust. And I think Gaudette is falling into the camp with Virtanen and Sven Berchi, where if you're not going to be really dangerous, where you're controlling the puck in the other team's zone because you're so good offensively, and Gaudette's not doing that, And if you're constantly chasing the puck and causing a lot of worry, which I think is happening with Gaudette, Green is just not going to put you out there. I think he's okay with Beagle and Sutter offering some, usually not much. I mean, the start of the season, those guys have been good points wise and offense wise, but he'd much rather have, and like most coaches, they'd rather have you be a safe, neutral, just go out there and keep it even until our stars can get back on the ice. And if he could have a more offensive center, or like keep Sutter there with Mott and maybe like a McEwen or a Pearson, all of a sudden that could be a pretty decent line. I know Sutter's not much of a playmaker, but he's got a good shot, and I think Pearson can make plays, and I think Mott can make plays. I wouldn't mind seeing, actually I would love to see Mott get a chance with Horvat. Think of that. Horvat, Mott, and Höglander. Fast, great on the boards, opportunistic guys. All of them can shoot, all of them can pass. That would be a magic line. And right now, Mott is doing so much, and his center mostly is Jay Beagle. Think of that. The guy's got 5 goals already with Jay Beagle, and hardly any power play time. Although the Canucks power play twos look pretty good. I love seeing Höglander out there. He's great. I mean, this guy is, we're so lucky. And out of the things Benning does, that was a good draft pick. For every Jake Virtanen draft pick, there's somebody like that. Like, what a great pickup. Here's another note I had about Mott. Picks up the puck in his own end under jet pressure, takes it up alone, gets his own dump, and then he set up Miller for a dangerous chance. Like, this is really similar to what Höglander did later on. I loved it. In the third period, the Jets did come out really strong, super heavy forecheck pressure. Pettersson got turned around in the neutral zone. He went back to his ice, and he ended up like bobbling the puck in his own end. And I could see him just think, okay, fine, I'm just going to get it back to the defenseman. And who was the steady, confident defenseman back there? Says, don't worry, Pettersson, I got this. Jalen Chatfield. How good has he been? He looks like a regular out there. He's got good wheels. He's not afraid to jump in. They highlighted him on the in-between period show of Hockey Night in Canada. Sort of directing. He's constantly pointing. The guy's a pro, and sometimes, well, we've heard some criticism of how the AHL team for the Canucks has been developing players, where they tend to really want to win down there, so they'll play their veterans that are never going to become NHLers over the rookies. But whatever they've been doing at Chatfield down there, or maybe he just has that mentality, playing a lot of pro games. He's an undrafted guy, so playing a lot of good pro hockey in college too. He looks far more confident than, say, Uelevi, and of course miles beyond Rafferty. And Uelevi, I thought, was really coming around, and he was really getting his wheels going. He got that goal, and he was looking a lot more confident. But right now, Chatfield is fantastic, and the Canucks all of a sudden have some decent defense depth with Ben on that right side, on his offside. He looks great. He's getting not afraid to take shots and put them quickly on the net, and he creates a lot of things. Like, I don't think he's not Adrian Aucoin out there. He's not going to be throwing in bombs, but I tell you what, I'd much rather see Ben get a shot on net to create something than, say, Alex Edler, where Edler is either going to do kind of a floaty wrister, or he's going to slap it and probably miss the net, or Ben gets them on net, low, things happen. You can tip him, you can get a rebound, and he's fitting so well. And how amazing is it to have a guy that's making close to the minimum paired up with your top offensive defenseman and finding a good fit for him? I think later on through the season, having Hamonic around, I mean, they're defensemen, they're going to get hurt. Edler's going to get hurt. They're all going to get hurt. So having that depth is a good thing. Uelevi looking for a spot. Hamonic looking for a spot. There'll be spots opening up. I thought Schmidt had a really great game again. He's not a super flashy guy because he doesn't have a really big shot, but he's super mobile and he's super confident, and he's a real stabilizing presence, and he plays a lot of tough minutes. I think the Jets goalie stopped this from being a rout. If Demko stopped, I was going to say Ottawa after we played them 3 times. If Demko prevented the Jets from running away with it in the first, I think, what's his name? Hallerbach? I think he stopped the Canucks from totally exploding this game in the second period. He was amazing. I mean, you can see why he gets the accolades he does, because I mean, he's an all-star. He is more than an all-star. He is totally elite. And how about that McEwen goal? I thought Miller looked really fantastic. He made 2 or 3 really incredible stick handling moves to set up a bend shot and a McEwen tip. I thought that was really, really nice. And that's about it. I'll keep this one a bit shorter. How great would it have been if they had another 2 games to play and we could have had a series out of this? I mean, the Canucks did well to sustain the positive momentum from the Senators, keep that confidence going. And I think this is going to be another sort of statement for them to go into Montreal and have it out with them there after getting basically totally embarrassed by Montreal earlier. And that's what's so great about this division play, is that it's not boring to play the same teams over and over again, because you're constantly trying to assert yourself against each other. It's kind of like an alpha dog thing, you know. It's like big bucks just bucking around, hitting each other with the horns, trying to see who's the top dog. And Montreal embarrassed Vancouver, and now they get a chance to redeem themselves, and they're going to want to redeem themselves, and they got to play them a few times, right? And then they have the first chance in Toronto. That's going to be a big game. I'm not looking at the schedule, but I'm just going to assume that the Toronto game is going to be on Hockey Night in Canada. It's going to be that big stage, and maybe that'll be Pettersson finally having a really dominant game. He's had points in these wins, and he's looked okay, but he has not looked his dominant self. He seems to be trying to do too much, or I don't know. Teams have his number a bit more in terms of how to play him. They're just playing the body. And I think he's also trying to play the body too, like show he's not going to get pushed around. And I think that's causing him a bit of frustration. Speaking of playing the body, did you see the hellbow they call it on Twitter from Höglander? It was when they had the 2 offsetting penalties. They were in the corner. I think it was in the Canucks corner. And Höglander's getting cross-checked from behind. He gets cross-checked from behind once. He takes a look behind him, and he ends up, he times it so that when the guy comes at him, he falls backwards and just lightly flicks his elbow. And I don't know if he got the Jets player that did it, but the Jets player's head definitely went back. So it could have just been a dive, like, oh, I got elbowed, or he might have like really nailed him. I mean, a sharp elbow to the face, to the nose, to the mouth, to the teeth, sensitive area. But he's amazing. I think he was, like I said, the best player for the Canucks of the game. He just does everything you need to do to score at the NHL. You know, you've got your Virtanens and really skilled guys. Like, if you got a lot of skill with the puck and you got a good shot and you're big and you're fast, you can score the way say like Connor McDavid did last night, where he just knifed through an entire team and scores. But there are not very many Connor McDavids, obviously. And Höglander scores those goals, like a bouncing goal, hitting it out of the air. Winning those battles along the boards, like he's really taking people by surprise. And you could see by the end of the game, the Jets defenders were starting to back off of him because they were really respecting what he was doing. And they didn't want to get burned by this kid. And I just fucking love him. And Zach McEwen has been so much better than he was in the playoffs. Not in the playoffs against the Vegas Knights, he just looked really overwhelmed, but he was fantastic. Let's take a look at the roster in case there's anything I missed. That's about it, other than just to clarify the point with Chatfield, 17 minutes he had him on the ice for. That's confidence. That's not the less than 10 minutes that Hugh Levy was getting. And then you can see that they've got this line that's got at 7 minutes, McEwen 7 minutes, and Sutter, even with killing penalties, only 11 minutes. And I think Sutter could be, I know they've tried him at a third line center before, but I think he could be a part of that sustained pressure. And that's what the Canucks need. They need to be able to roll more lines, and because it's like rugby, you know, it's all about momentum, and you need to be just relentless at pushing them into their zone and just having that team. You want to make it so that other team, all they can do is dump the puck out, and you get possession again, and you just put on a fresh set of legs and you go back at them. And I think they probably had some of their best against elite competition anyway. Their best play in terms of that. But I would just like to see more. Because, you're thinking, okay, this team's got potential, but can you win a cup with them? And you start looking, and that's a fun way to look at it. Besser, Miller, Sutter maybe as a fourth line, third line spot guy. Pearson as a third line, second line spot guy. Mott, I think, could be third line, second line. Horvat, of course. Pedersen when he gets going. Höglander, oh my God, we're so bloody lucky to have him in that top six. Love him. Roussel. He kills penalties, I think just because he can. He's not terrible at it. And that's a tough job. And you don't want to put your really talented guys out there. Like, you could maybe put a Höglander out there and have him maybe get a few breakaways. Because he's got a good stick. He's really smart. He could, he could read the play well enough that he could get some breakaways. But do you really want Höglander to be blocking shots? That's what it comes down to. I mean, guys get hurt all the time from that stuff. So, I mean, Roussel's sort of good fodder for that, but he just can't do anything offensively. He's got decent speed, and he's not afraid to go into the dirty zones sometimes, but he doesn't go in very smartly, and he takes a lot of stupid penalties. And there's just no time for that. If you're not adding any points, and you have one shot, and not a lot of hits, and you take penalties, he's got to go. He's like fourth line at best, and even then, he's not really offering a heck of a lot. Anyways, it was a fantastic game. Really looking forward to the Canucks going into Montreal and making a statement. I'm really looking forward to them meeting the Jets again and the Leafs and beating up on the Senators and the Oilers. And I bet it'll be sort of a Montreal-Toronto at the top, Canucks, Jets, Flames battling for that middle, and then Ottawa and the Oilers on the bottom. And the Canucks are sort of the Tanner Pearson of the division. They're probably more in the third tier, but we'll see if they can work their way up to hang with the big boys. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought, or any other topics you want to discuss. I'm thinking of doing a couple of videos on things like my all-time favorite Canucks, or experiences going to Canucks games, and maybe why Alexander McGillney's my favorite player, and other favorite players like Kyle Wellwood, Jonas Höglander, and more. Bye for now.